Hey Grapefruit, have you met my friend High Proof Spirit? You guys should get together.
They had a baby.
And that's how you lose subscribers.
I just said, yes, man, right away, anything.
Alrighty, so this GrapefruitCello, or as the Italians call it, Pompelmocello, I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly. So this is just the grapefruit version of the classic limoncello that's normally made with lemons. For such a simple recipe, this was a roller coaster for me. You see, I kind of screwed up my own recipe by doing too much research. I had a dozen recipes kind of floating around in my head, and I ended up using twice as many grapefruit as I needed to. Yeah. The good news is, in my panic to see if I could fix it, I think I came up with something really tasty. So what I'm giving you guys today is the right recipe that I was supposed to start with. If you want to try and, skirt disaster, you could try what I actually did, but I think you're going to get a much better product with half the grapefruit. Okay, so all you need is a liter of high-proof neutral spirit. You can use Everclear if you want. You want to use something that's at least 80% ABV or 160 proof or higher, up to 95-96% like straight Everclear. This is the high-proof vodka that I did in this video right up here if you want to see how I made this. Okay, so you also need 8 to 10 grapefruits. You're only going to peel 5 of them, but you're going to use the juice from all of them. So once you peel them, stick them in the fridge, and that way they'll keep. So yeah, that was my first mistake, peeling all 10 of these when I really only needed to peel 5 of them. Even though mine came out fine, you're gonna get an awesome flavor and an awesome color from just 5 of them. Trust me on that. There is no reason to go as far as I did, because mine actually came out kind of spicy. The cello family of drinks are after dinner drinks. They're supposed to cleanse your palate. They're not supposed to obliterate it. All right, so you're also gonna need 500 to 800 grams of sugar. 800 if you have a super sweet tooth or you went overboard on the level of bitterness. So I don't have a sponsor for this week's video, but I do have my own logo merchandise available in the little bar right above the comments section if you want to check them out. If you want to flaunt how awesome you are and support the team. So you're going to start off by washing all of your fruit very thoroughly to get off any pesticides and any wax that they use to coat the grapefruit to make them nice and shiny. You don't want that in your spirit. And then you're going to use a vegetable peeler to very carefully, very slowly scrape off the peels. And the slower you go, the more careful you are, the easier it's going to be to get just the skin of the grapefruit and avoid getting the pith, that white stuff underneath the skin. You don't want that because it's bitter. Now if you get some pieces with that stuff in there, you could just scrape that white stuff off with a knife. And I recommend that you go to the trouble of doing that, because the more you can reduce the bitterness, the better your overall flavor is going to be. And you'll notice that mine has a lot of that white pith in there when it didn't need to. That was my second mistake. So that's the other reason why I had to use so much sugar in mine to knock it down. There's no reason to make this process any harder than it has to be. So scrape that stuff off and you're going to have a lot easier time dialing in the flavor when it comes to mixing everything together. So after you get all the peels off and scrape off the pith, then you're just going to soak your peels in your alcohol for at least 5 days. You can go as long as a month if you want to where the peels get white and crispy because they've lost all their color. But honestly, this is 5 days and you get an amazing color and an amazing flavor in that amount of time. So it's up to you how long you want to let it go. Then you just strain all that through a wire strainer to get all the alcohol out. So here's where my recipe kind of differs from the traditional cellos. I don't use sugar water to make a syrup to dilute. I use juice and sugar to dilute the alcohol down. Grapefruit juice is a lot more robust, so it really gives a nice citrus bite that kind of brightens and lifts the liqueur. And I really dig the flavor. So now that your liquor's all strained, you're gonna set that aside and squeeze all of your grapefruits to get all that yummy juice out. So take all your peeled grapefruits and all your unpeeled grapefruits and squeeze them out. Then just pour all that juice and pulp through a cheesecloth on a strainer so that you're not carrying all that fruit pulp over with your juice. So then mix your juice with 500 grams of sugar Heat it up on the stove just until that sugar melts. There's no reason to bring it up to a simmer or a boil. You're just trying to heat it up enough to dissolve that sugar all the way through. Then let it cool down, and then you're just going to add it to your alcohol. All the different cellos are technically liqueurs, so they should have an ABV around 30 to 35%. When you're proofing stuff down like this, make your life a lot easier and use a proofing calculator. I'm going to put a link to Jesse's proofing calculator on his website down in the video description. You just click on that and put in your starting ABV and the volume of spirit that you're using, and then your target ABV, and it'll spit out how much water you need to add to proof down to your target ABV. Now, because you have the sugar in there, it's not going to be 100% accurate, but you're going to end up being within a couple of percentage points, so don't stress about it. As you add the syrup into your liquid, you can see how it looches and turns all nice and milky. That's the citrus oils coming out of solution as it mixes in. So after you get these mixed together, you can do a taste test, see if you need to add a little bit more sugar, or if you want to like thin it out, you could always add a little bit more grapefruit juice. Totally up to you. The thing is, the taste on these is pretty subjective. If you want more sugar in there, add more sugar. If you want more citrus, you can add a little bit more juice. It's up to you. If you want it to be a little weaker or a little stronger, just adjust the amount on your proofing calculator so that you hit that target. And of course, I ended up using a lot more sugar than you guys will need to, just because I had so much pith in there and because I doubled the amount of peels that I had in there. But I definitely don't foresee you guys having to go to like 800 or 900 grams of sugar. Start with 500. So once you've got those mixed together, just bottle it and then stick it in a pantry for a week or two to let the flavors mix together. One of the things that you'll see consistently on different cello recipes is to let it sit for at least a week or two, because the longer it sits and matures, the better the flavor is. Things mellow out, they mix together. If you taste it right as soon as it's mixed and then you taste it again in a couple of weeks, you'll be able to tell that there's a significant difference there. So before you serve it, you definitely want to stick it in the freezer overnight, because this stuff is baller when it's ice cold. Yeah, so before we get on to the tasting, let me go ahead and thank all of my Patreon supporters. You guys are amazing. Sorry this project took me a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but I appreciate you guys sticking around for it. Thank you for your patience. Much appreciated. I've had a little bit already. You gotta taste it in order to get the flavor just right. You know, it just smells like grapefruit. You know, it's just got that kind of bright, beautiful citrus aroma to it. All right, so let's give it a little taste. So good. Even as overly bitter as mine started out, you know, adding the sugar and adding the juice really helped it to mellow out. And one thing I think that the juice really does is it gives it a kind of a lusciousness. I mean, it makes your mouth continue to water after you drink it. It's so good. Make some chicken parmesan or some carbonara, and then when everybody's done and at the table, just like, oh, bring this stuff out of the freezer, pour everybody a little shot glass of it. So tune in next week, because we're going to be making some orange cello or aranchello, and this stuff is so frickin' delicious. But we're going to take it to the next level in next week's recipe. So if you're not subscribed but you want to find out when I'm going to be posting this video, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell icon. That way you get notified as soon as I post it. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be yummy. So if you liked this video, if you learned anything, hit that like button because it really helps out the channel. Comments down below. All right, thanks for watching. Talk at you later.